Meet the Artist Clinic Series, and we're very, very honored to have this wonderful jazz icon and somebody who's been around and play with.
Old.
Yeah, well, I'm in here too. But anyways, play with everybody, and he's just got a wealth of experience and wisdom. And these things are very informal. I'm sure he's going to do a little playing and probably ask questions. So just get involved with asking questions and picking his brain a little bit. How about a hand for Mr.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Is this okay?
All right, thank you very much. I want to do a couple things. I'm going to play some, but I'd like you to indulge me. How many musicians do we have in the house? I know we have music lovers, but okay, good. So would you hum a G and just keep it going, you know, and don't expire on me, take a breath, 1, 2, 3. Because sometimes we become so involved with all these little numbers and sharp signs and little zeros and slashes and it was just one note and I'm just playing other notes, and yet when I go from major to minor, there should be something in your body that says, oh, something changed. That's how powerful the music is. Not me, the music. So we don't have to be super complicated. Jazz musicians are the worst of becoming to try to play everything imaginable on one chord. If you have the ability, which I do not, to play a lot of notes and still make it feel simple like this, that's absolutely wonderful. Some of you can do that. I heard him last night. But I just, because I'm in this position, and I'm talking and you're not, but I feel sometimes we miss it. And we're in the school of studying to make it, to do it like it should be done. But it's just information. It's just data. That's a new word for musicians, data. You know, it's just another word for more information that we don't know how to use yet. Some of you have more data, but sometimes it's difficult to learn how to use it. So that's just something that I wanted to do. I saw Lee Conant's do this once, and he had a whole audience. It was the London Jazz Festival. I mean, there was probably 3,000 to 4,000 people singing a G, and he was just playing. He's a melody maker. And it was riveting. But I just want you to always think that you don't have to play a ton of notes in order to project you, whatever that happens to be. Don't want to belabor it, but just think about that. Because sometimes it's so simple, we don't even think about it. We don't even begin to think about it. All the older players, the Lester Youngs, the Ben Webster, and even before that, they didn't play a whole lot of notes. And if it was a B-flat-7, it was just a B-flat-7, not a sharp 5, sharp 11, flat 9. It didn't have all those things. All those things were there, but all they just saw it was just a B-flat-7, and they put however the melody worked. So sometimes too much knowledge gets us in trouble. So just think about the bigger picture. I'm going to play a little bit, and then I want you to we'll talk about it. What was the name of the last tune? Right. How many of you didn't know it? Be honest. Duke Ellington. The reason I played it is because I love it. It's a beautiful song. I wish I wrote it, but it's part of our repertoire. So those of you who didn't know it, the musicians, I suggest, if you like melody, it's a serious melody. If you like the chord progression, it's got a serious chord progression. I call it a playground. You have fun in the playground, as long as you know the rules. How did I start?
You just improvise around the beat.
Okay, improvise around E. Is that how I started?
Started with your bow way up high.
Okay. Now I'm talking about, yes, you're correct. But now I'm asking you now to I'm asking you to be specific. I don't really want to hear about, wow, you sounded great, that was really wonderful, you're really wonderful, but I don't want to hear that. I want you to tell me what you heard. And is there a pen on that, to write on that board?
Let's see.
There's one. Could one of you, would you be a scribe?
Sure.
So you said I started with the bow up high. Okay, just up high with the bow. Just yes.
Bow high.
No, it's not working. What else did you hear?
You were using a lot of harmonics.
Okay, harmonics. What else?
Bowing the open string on the bottom, letting it ring out.
Okay, playing open strings, sustaining the sound. Okay,
Pedal.
just pedal, yeah. What else?
It's kind of the theme you kept going back to.
Okay, so how would we just say that? Themes that you kept going back to, what does that mean?
There was this one that he kept repeating.
Okay, repetition,
Motive?
motive, repetition, motific, repetition.
Kinda like-
Somebody else,
It's kind of like strolling.
strolling?
Yeah.
That's a nice tune.
Or
What do you mean?
it was just kind of felt like a strolling bass.
Can you be more specific about that? All right, just put it down, stroll.
I mean, leisurely.
Going in and out of time. So on musical terms, what would we say? In and out of time. So what would that be? Rubato.
That's one way to call it, yeah.
Rubato. What else?
Overtones?
Overtones. Okay. What else?
Vibrato.
Vibrato. What else?
Rock solid time.
Solid time keeping.
Dancing.
Okay. So why did you feel like dancing?
Because it felt good.
It felt good. So that's an emotion. Okay. What else?
Repetition.
Repetition. Which most of us don't want to do. What else?
So it was quite soft.
At the ends of the pieces, I heard octaves. I heard some pretty big octave leaps.
Octave leaps. Okay.
Octave what?
Leaps.
Oh,
Someone had something to do.
Just It's quite soft.
I'm running out of ink.
Dynamics. Uh-oh.
Oh, well. We might
All right.
have to got the memo.
Dynamics.
Is there another one?
One thing I would love would, the board would you, yeah. And you put those boards and you,
I played
yeah.
harmony, like the chords, okay. What else? What key was the first piece in? E what?
E minor.
E minor, okay. You sure it wasn't E major? Say yes.
Yes. There were sometimes when you played it up high, like it was a E7 flat 9 or something like that with a flat 2 and a major third.
Okay. Now he's hearing something, so when I began to play, we began to make illusions that you're hearing other things. See, there's no piano here. There's no drums here. There's no chordal instrument here. I mean, I can play maybe three notes at the same time sometimes, but I mean, on this instrument, it's not designed, or you can do it without breaking your hand. But we send out an illusion that you're hearing harmony that's actually not being played. Good. What else?
Double stop.
Double stops.
Tenths.
Tenths. Come on. Some of the same people are talking. This is a music school, correct? Yes, sir.
You kept going back to maybe like 3 or 4 different themes and embellishing on them.
Embellishments.
Dynamics.
Anything. We said that with dynamics. Okay. Good. Yes.
There was this thing where you like lightly pluck like the upper part of the strings, like a percussive effect.
Okay. Percussion, percussive effects. What else?
Repetition.
You said that already. What else? What key was Sophisticated Lady in?
A flat.
G.
Who said G? Who said A flat?
Flat.
Who's in A flat? Just happened, but that's the key it's written in, but that doesn't mean I had to play it that way. I'm doing this because I need you to start really listening and hearing you before anyone else can really discern what it is that you're playing. You have to really kind of know what it is you're attempting to play. And it has to be crystal clear. And it doesn't, the people don't even have to like it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about clarity. If it's clearly out of place, then it's clearly out of place, and I'm trying not to do that again. But most of us don't really listen, and we're talking about listening enough to yourself that when you begin to play in an ensemble without music, without reading anything, just the sonic stuff hitting the air. As a bassist, I tell all of my students and all the bass players that ask me, I said, you know, we have the unique ability to completely sabotage every ensemble we play in immediately if we're not really in tune with what it is we're doing. I really feel I have the ability to completely sabotage the best of bands. Some drummers might say they can do it, but actually I can do it better because I have the harmony and the rhythm. And they go hand in hand, and they begin to really affect things. Imagine the band, the great band. Just saw them the other night on television. It's a movie that just came out about John Coltrane. I don't know how many of you have seen it yet. Pretty amazing film. A lot of footage of him and with that quartet, with Elvin and Jimmy Garrison, McCoy. Take Jimmy Garrison out of that and put a person who really didn't understand what they were going for. We wouldn't be hearing much about John Coltrane right now. Take the band that I really felt that was one of Miles's most incredible bands, was with Wayne Shorter and Ron and Tony Williams and Herbie. Wayne Shorter. Take Ron out of that. But any other bass player, it would not have been quite the same. Ron and Tony Williams basically ran that band in terms of the character of the band. And Miles let them do it. But it's very important that you, no matter what instrument that you play, that you are responsible for what comes out of your instrument. If you don't want to take responsibility for it, I suggest that you just sell your instrument and go home. If you really want to play with people that challenges you, and music that challenges you, and then those of you who are still in your 20s, you begin to develop, because your reputations are developing here, today, in this environment, in this room. There's some of you who are going to be knowing each other 25, 30 years from now. Maybe, maybe not, but the potential is always there. So you never close the door. So you have to truly be responsible. When I started playing, I was a trumpet player. I was in the Air Force Band as a trumpet player. I came to my senses a long time ago and put it down. Particularly after I got a chance to play with people like Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw and Wynton Marsalis and Kenny Dorham, you know, Clark Terry. I'm so glad to put that trumpet down. But the bass took over, but I didn't know much about the bass. I just knew it. I knew what it did. I could hear it on the recordings, but I didn't know harmony. Nobody told me that this instrument here was important. You don't have to be a pianist, but you have to be friendly with this instrument. This is the orchestra, full orchestra. I didn't know for a long time, and my ears got me into places that I shouldn't have been in, because my sonars were out there, but I couldn't tell you what I was doing. I could not protect myself. Knowledge keeps you in control, so you don't do dumb things. And when you begin to learn the difference, see, I was ignorant of harmony. But I knew when I placed the note and my ear said, then I moved it to another note. That felt better. It was just that simple. Up a half step, down a half step, I'm cool. Now you learn how to hook them up. And then I realized after I began to learn what these little zeros and little zeros with slashes in them, these little flat signs over numbers, I had no idea and could care less. I did know my alphabet though. I knew all the big letters. So I could read changes, but I didn't know what those other things, those hieroglyphics, but I knew where a B was, and I knew where an E flat was, because I had a picture, and it said that. But eventually I began to really be put in positions, and then I got the rude awakening. Someone asked me a question and I realized I couldn't answer it. They liked what I had done. I said, "You did? What did I do?" That's okay too. In fact, there are a lot of people, some of the greatest musicians on the planet, like the Montgomery family, Wes Montgomery, Buddy Montgomery. They wouldn't know, I mean, if you put blank manuscript paper in front of Buddy or Wes, they would have hives. I mean, they heard everything though. They heard everything. And you had somewhat like a photographic memory. And that's, their whole careers were developed like that. Monk Montgomery, the bassist, he learned, I really don't know, I met him a long time ago, but I know he played a lot of shows. He was used to play in Las Vegas and Tahoe and all those show lounge bands, and he could play because he could read the changes. And he had great ears. But, you know, but there's a handful of people like that. And I applaud those of you who can do that. But if you can do that and think, use your intelligence, use the knowledge that you're here to take in and put it together. And when you can play and not use the intellect only when you have to, only when you have to, that's when the music can jump in an ensemble. Now, I think like this all the time now, particularly now of trying to be clear to myself. I like the way I play. I don't care if you don't like the way I play. I'm not trying to please you. I'm trying to please the music. If I'm going to play a sophisticated lady, that's a Duke Ellington song. It's a luscious song, so I want to be more respectful to him. And in doing so, I think I will come to you, and you will enjoy it. If you don't, so it's okay. But this is the way, because I don't want to dilute my presentation. Am I playing okay? Are you happy with the way I play? You know? Yeah, but see, I don't want to waste my time thinking about that, because I don't want to dilute your whatever you're doing. And sometimes when we're young, we don't think of these simple things. But if you can learn to do this now as you develop and you're playing, some of you are really playing incredibly well. Just think how much more it's going to be as you get 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. Jimmy Heath is 91 and he's playing so much saxophone, it's amazing. Roy Haynes is 93, still playing the mess out the drums. Randy Weston, how many of you know that name? Do not know that name, Randy Weston. Ooh. Google him. He's about 6'7". He's not a fat guy, he's just thick. And he can make the piano levitate. It's amazing. He's 91. Benny Golson, 88, something like that. Wayne Shorter's, what, 83, something close to it. Ron Carter just turned 80, will be. I will be 74 in February, and I have more passion about playing now than I did when I was just starting. I wish that upon you, that you can keep the passion that you have. But it's important for me to, in this setting, because quite often we don't talk much anymore. We don't even listen much anymore. I'm talking about really listening. I couldn't wait till the next album came out in the group, and we would go over to my buddy's house, and we put these black things, you know, these on the turntable. Turn the lights down low, turn the volume up, and nobody spoke for at least 20 minutes. And you just listened. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, we started it over again. And then you turned it over and you listened to that. Then we would rehearse after getting that, trying to, because the records told us what to do, how to play. What are the tunes that's the hip tunes, because we want to be hip. How many of you actually are in a group together, like trio, quartet? How often do you get together outside of school?
Just when we gig usually,
Only when you gig.
a couple of times a week.
Okay. Do you ever sit down and listen as an ensemble? Listen to music? How many of you don't listen too much anymore? Don't listen to a lot. You might have 1,000 or more on your iPad or something, but I guarantee you only listen to maybe 20 of them in a month. But I'm talking about really listening. Really checking out the voicing, checking out, did he switch to sticks then? Did you hear the voicing on the piano? I heard a record with Ron Carter and I said, oh man, what is that? I don't have that note on my bass. It was a low C. I said, I gotta get one of those. So I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that I think are important that sometimes we really miss a lot of things. Yes, I know you're busy. I know you've got tests coming up. We can all give a ream of excuses that you didn't do something. But I need you to really take heed, and I'm basically taking this opportunity because I won't see you anymore. I don't know any of you, but I know there's a lot of energy in this room, and I would like to think that you're here because you're interested, not because your teacher told you to be here. more involved with what you do and want to do. Make a list. How many of you have recorded commercially? Okay, number of hands. But how many would love to have a CD up with your name on it? None of you? Don't do this, do this. Okay. Who said they had a commercial CD? What did you do to prepare for that CD?
I wrote the music.
Okay,
I rehearsed the band.
okay,
I performed the music live
okay,
and talked about it. Talked about the solos, talked about the concept, talked about the sound. We talked about the support at different times so that everything can have a family story, good cohesive feel to it. I also talked to the people that were going to record and release it to make sure that it had all the proper sound and representation that I wanted people to hear, because I always thought that if I'm not going to be there in person, that when somebody hears me, I want the absolute best representation of that possible.
okay. There's a lot of thought there. There's a lot. I mean, you just said it in just a few minutes, but we're talking about a lot of prep. Preparation is our best friend. It's almost like if I came in, I have $10,000 here, and I'm going to say, here, what's your name?
Sonder.
Sonder. Here, take this $10,000, and I want you to do a recording. And I got, today is Thursday. Monday, I got the studio booked. So I need you to go in there and hit. Could you do it?
Well, I don't think I would make the record that I would love to have more time.
Exactly. You can't rush this stuff. A lot of the things that we listen to, all the Elvin Jones, the Miles Davis, the Bill Evans, Charles Lloyd, you know, I've been talking about years back now, when there were a lot of bands, but they were playing 6 nights a week. Like I was playing with Eddie Harris. We would start at 9 and we would be through at 4 in the morning. Hitting hard, 6 nights a week. Then get in the car and drive 500 miles and go and do it again. That's really how you learn how to play, even when you want to go home and go to sleep. Or you're sick. I remember being in Paris with Dexter Gordon. I had strep throat. I didn't want to play. I couldn't even swallow. So I had to go to the gig. We played the concert, and they finally got a doctor for me and went and gave me a shot, and I came back to the hotel, and I was going to just pass out go to sleep early, and I came back, and they were listening to the tape. Tape, not, that's what, they used tape back then. And I came in, and everybody said, man, you sounded great tonight. I said, I did. The only time you should go on automatic pilot is when you really need to lie down. So we all have our reservoir of ideas, cliches and things that we that becomes your personality. Everybody's got them. Everybody in this room is developing your own cliches and things. Everyone has them. And, you know, I talk about these big black hefty bags, you know, that they advertise that don't break, because you can fill them up. You can fill them up with a lot of stuff, and you be hauling them with you everywhere you go. It gets heavier and heavier. And all your stuff is in there, in the bottom. And the only time that you should even come close to them is when you got strep throat or you need to be in the bed or somewhere and go on an automatic pilot. That's the only time you're allowed. I was 3,000 miles away from home. I mention these things because this is, if you have a desire to travel and your people are going to be, and if you play really good, you can't make anybody hire you. You play so well that people say, man, you sound so good, I need you in my band. That's how your reputation begins to build. And then you keep that. Even when you go home, after you've played the gig, the piano player and the drummer still hanging out, and you packed up halfway home, and they're talking about you, and you don't even know it. You have left an essence of what they need. Think about that. So every time you play, give it up. Be serious. People will notice. When? How? I don't know. Because you cannot make anybody hire you. They have to want what you have. And then the next thing is for you to stay, to get that second call. The first call, some people might recommend you. And people get desperate, so they'll go ahead, okay. But a lot of people don't really want to do that. J.J. Johnson did not like to play not knowing what he was going to present to you. So when we were in Paris, Billy Drummond, who was the drummer at that time, his father was ill and was getting close to leaving us, and so he went home and got another drummer. And JJ's manager said, well, why don't you see if you can call Al Foster? Al Foster's a magnificent drummer. Played with Miles Davis, with a whole bunch of people. And JJ said, well, I know Al Foster. I know he played with Miles, but I never played with him. But I played with Lewis Nash last week. Let's get him, because I know how that goes. So people really want confirmation. So when they actually call you that second time, they want you. And there's expectations that people have. I don't know what expectations you had of my coming here this afternoon. And I realize that it's still difficult for me to say, oh wow, I did do that. That was a long time ago. And I've been very, very, very fortunate. But almost everyone that I have gained a reputation from are gone. So what do? Do I rest on my laurels? No, I can't. Because then you get comfortable. This music will not allow you to be a really good consummate musician, I'm not talking about jazz, I'm not talking about classical music, I'm not talking about any kind of music, to make people stop and listen, you have to project something. And it's got to be strong. Not to get the house. You know what I mean when I say everybody plays just to get the house, so they play fast and loud, or just so that they can tell people that they're good. I don't need that. If you can do all that and still, without trying to do that, you can't make things happen. You have to really get inside of it, and people can hear that. I'm confident, I have to be. I'm very optimistic about life, period. And I know that I'm in a position now that people are really listening to me more than I would ever have imagined. But I have a if I keep the responsibility of being just to play the music as best as I possibly can, even people who don't even like the way I play will like what I play. Something of what I play. We can't please everyone. I dare to say all of you don't like everything you hear. You're lying if you do. And those of you who practice and say you practice 7, 8 hours a day, I know you're lying. However, how you practice, what you practice, how consistently you practice, and how focused you can practice. If you can do 10, 15 minutes of real focus every day, you will improve. Truly. Okay. I would like, if you all have some questions or anything that you'd like to ask me about my career or anything of that nature, I'd be more than happy to discuss it. But I need you to know about me. I'm in a place now in my life. I started composing, a great deal. Roll up your sleeves, learning. I just love the process of composition. It's amazing. And like I say, I was very fortunate to be with people like Bob Brookmeyer and Ben Golson, Jimmy Heath, and Spot Hampton, and I would get a chance to play a lot of their music. And it was thrilling. And I would wonder, how did they do that? How did they come up with these things? So I've always been intrigued, but I've never studied formally. I buy books, I ask questions. And that's pretty much it. I'm just learning. I got involved with the BMI Composers Workshop in New York City, and it really thrust me into what do you want to write, Rufus? What do you mean, what do I want to write? Well, what do you want to write? You know, because we write music for film, television, bar mitzvahs, Italian weddings, circus music, blah, 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 blah. It's all prescribed. And they said, well, what do you want to write? You don't have to write any of that stuff. It took me a long time because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't even know, I hadn't even thought about that. It took me a year. And they said, you know, if you want to arrange, You can go down a couple blocks and there's some fantastic arrangers, and that's an incredible skill as it is. But here we want you to see a little germ of an idea start, and we want to see how it grows. Took me a whole year to understand what to write something, literally. It was amazing. So I love the process. Do we have any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Do you have any advice for how to establish and maintain like a group?
How to maintain a group. Okay. No, it's not that difficult to conceptualize, but it's difficult to really get people to really be on the same page. So this is where you need to be able to play with people that you don't even talk about music. When you play, it feels good every time you play with them. You don't even ask questions. Somehow they know what you said and they respond. So those are the people that I think you should really gravitate to, and then eventually everyone has to have an objective of what's in it for me. Well, if you actually have people who really contribute, if it's your band, you can hire anybody that plays well and they'll come to you. But we're not talking about money now. We're talking about just being able to sit down. You just like being in the same company, in the same room with these people. They think alike. Those are the people. How to maintain it is once you have a repertoire, then the business of music comes into play, because you've got to have a product that you can take to a venue somewhere. It can't be 1 or 2 tunes. It's got to be, 10, 15 tunes that you can just play. And then record yourself. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money now. You can get some pretty good sounds. So, because most people say, well, I want to hear the band. Boom. Then it's up to us. I think we're living at a time that is really great for creative people with the internet and because we got the whole world actually connected. It wasn't like, when I was in my 20s or 25, I didn't even kind of know. I was just trying to just play. But thinking about how do I sustain this? Well, the one person comes in mind, Pat Metheny, when he was really young, 20 years old. Got some guys, and they just got in a car. They would drive 500 miles for a gig that didn't pay much, but they had a commitment to play the music, and they would just do that and do that and do that. There's a price one pays for everything. So if you're willing to pay the price of actually nurturing a group and taking a calculated chance of really just exposing it. Nowadays, I think because of Facebook and all these other situations, I think we actually have a better chance of at least letting people know, if you're going to leave here, you can actually, my group's going to be in Chicago in 2 weeks. Whereas when I was your age, being able to do that was almost next to impossible to do. I mean, when in Chicago, Joe Siegel, who has the jazz showcase in Chicago, he would put up a little placket on a telephone pole. I mean, that was the advertising. Y'all look at that and say, what is that? But that's exactly how it was. So, I mean, we have a lot of advantages now, but it takes a lot of work. So if you can collectively do that, there's only one band that I know of, a jazz ensemble, that actually had a stellar career of over 40 years, and it's the Modern Jazz Quartet. They all had a job. A musical director, a travel person, a person who, well, it was John Lewis, Percy Heath, Milt Jackson, and Connie Kay. Everybody had a job except Milt Jackson. Because Milt played so much vibe, they just let him play. But, so there was no argument when we went to a hotel. Percy, no, there was no, I don't like my room. I don't, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on to the, you know, in terms of traveling. So, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But once you have something, latch hold of it. Once you guys start playing with people and it feels, we're talking about a chemistry now. That's like a relationship with a man and a woman. You may not even know each other, but it feels right. And then you start nurturing. And if it's not right, you go about your business. But that chemistry, musicians, there's a chemistry there. And it's rare. It's like friends. We don't have, most of us don't have but one or two. I'm talking about real, true friends. We know a lot of folk. But people that you can tell anything to. Those are the kind of people that I think should be in the band. Eddie Harris hired me. I went to him. I said, man, I really like your music. I'd love to play in the band one day. He said, you're in school, aren't you? I said, yeah, I was at Northwestern at that time. And he said, you go finish this. Go finish school. All this stuff will be out here when you get out. Don't worry about it. If I need you, we'll talk then. Because a lot of people don't. They want you, and they don't care about you, your career or whatever. But Eddie was smart enough to know that you had to finish your education. And he said, I hired you because you said you liked my music. How novel is that? He was on Atlantic Records because a lot of people wanted to play with him because he was on Atlantic Records and he was playing festivals and things, and they thought maybe he could get. So you can't make those things happen. They have to happen because they like what you bring to the table. Yes, sir.
What do you like to hear from a drummer?
What do I like to hear from a drummer? Well, when I play with the drummer for the very first time, I'm working very hard, diligently to find his or her pulse. And I'm hoping they're doing the same to me. Because fighting on the bandstand is ugly. It hurts, actually. So I work, and if we can find that place, the guitarist or the pianist, they don't have a choice. And then when the trio comes together, that becomes that trio. Then the horn players don't have a choice. So it actually, but I mean, the drums and bass is like marriage. And if you don't think so, I think you should start rethinking about it. It's like learning how to make that groove sync up. I had the good fortune to play with Jack DeJohnette for 3 years, and it felt great. But early on, maybe first 6 months or so, Jack would come up, because those of you know who he is. I mean, you know, he's a very powerful powerhouse drummer. He could swing. He said, Rufus, I feel you about that far behind me. I said, I still wasn't real comfortable, because when he would unload, you'd really have to be there. But when he said that, it confirmed how I was feeling, and so I worked harder to really try to really sync up. And then it was my duty to find it each and every time I played with him. So, because I didn't want him to be able to tell me that again. And when I got there, I said, oh, that's what he's talking about. And I can't tell you what I mean. It's so minuscule, but huge. That's just because you can play time and you can play 4/4. It's more than that, folks. So I look for that, how that feels, and then we began to really do this. And that's when the music can get incredibly fun. But when you're fighting, it could be some of the most technical digital wizardry. And then people go, they go home and say so. And they don't even talk about you anymore because it didn't affect them. Questions? Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about your gig tonight. I know you're playing with Ellis and Harlan Riley. Have you ever played with Ellis before? I mean, how do you...
I have not ever played with Ellis Marsalis before. We've met for many years, but I've never had that pleasure. So I'm looking, I live for the unknown. I know it's going to be good, but I don't know what it's going to be. And I just hope, I just hope it. I know Harlan Riley better. Harlan's on my last recording with a big band that I've written some music. But we've never played in a trio situation. I sat in with him, wow, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the House of Blues, is that here? It was one summer, and I sat in on a couple of tunes, and that was the only time. I knew it felt good, and I knew when Harlan was playing in the Jazz and Lincoln Center band with Winton, I heard him several times, and I knew he could play with the big band, and I knew he could read, and I knew it, so I wanted this recording to be. The instrument is important, but I mean, these are physical instruments, and she will say, you haven't touched me in a few days. And I pay for it. And if you let it go longer, all of you know it. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about your setup on your instrument? I noticed that you're using dual pickups and a solid bridge. Can you tell us about, and also your end pin?
Okay, well, good. The end pin, those of you who may or may not have seen, is the instrument is offset. There's a bassist who lives in Paris. His name is Francois Rabat, and he's 85, and he plays like he's 20. It's amazing. And people say, well, he's a classical bassist, but he's more than that. I mean, he can actually play, you just call up any of the Bach cello suites, any one of them, and say, do the Sarabande and blah, and boom. But he's been playing that stuff since he was 14. He's a gypsy, a Syrian. He's like, his brothers were violinists, and he was a street musician. And nobody told him you couldn't do that on the bass. He just learned how to play that stuff. So I would do these workshops with him. I would be the jazz component of it. And I would watch him, and he started out with this steel pen, and he would bend it, because he says, well, there's got to be an easier way to play this cumbersome instrument. In the traditional way, you would stand up, the bass straight up, and when you played in upper register, you end up doing like this. And this is, at first he came out with carbon fiber, which was lighter. The steel end pen is heavy, it's steel. I mean, when this came out, it was a revolutionary thing because people could have different heights, and it was just phenomenal. But when you play with this and you play with this, it's like this, you play and it's kind of, you know, like saxophone players, when you put the ligature too tight, the reed won't resonate as well, or it has to be. So he was trying to find another way. He didn't like big instruments with the big shoulders. And he was more of a soloist, but there's a, see, the bass it's offset. So I changed the center of gravity of the instrument. So I can actually do this. And this bass is actually pretty heavy, but you can't really do that easily with a straight pen. But what happens is, now, in the traditional way, the bass is like this, and one bow, I hit my leg. So you had to learn how to do this, and then you do this. If you wanted to play here, you had to do this. So he's saying, you do this, trying to find that balance point with gravity. So here I play here. But my body's not moving. It becomes, the instrument comes to you. Yes, sir.
There's a new pig out. It has a swivel on it, but it fits in the middle, and you can achieve the same angle.
Yes, that's a new product.
It's not offset like yours.
Well, some have it straight back. Some people, it depends on the size of the instrument, the size of the belly, or whatever. But the whole idea, we have the term ergonomic. That's a new term, you know. But to be able to play at that energy level that I need to play, or I'm used to playing, you have to learn how to, because your body says, you can hurt yourself. Correct. If you're a drummer, sitting too low or too high, you're not using your natural weight. Every instrument, trumpet, guitar, saxophone, every instrument has some peculiarities that you have to learn how, so that you can play forever. And so this way, I've been playing this now, I can play the traditional way, but I don't really want to anymore, because now I'm playing different things. I would have never been able to do that, period. And then to learn how to be creative with it, and so you whatever your imagination can come up with, the instrument is coming to you. And so it's kind of revolutionary. You know what a problem, tradition is tradition, and to break tradition, a lot of people do not like that. So when Francois came out with this whole concept, a lot of people, we're talking about 25, 30 years ago now, people were poo-pooing it. But you had these German methods, Italian methods, French methods. These were like Bibles. Because there was over 400 years of documentation on how to play classical music. That's where all this book, there were no jazz books. You know. So, Francois was just saying he liked the crab. He used to go to the beach and watch a crab walk, you know. They just kind of go. So he doesn't shift anymore. He does this. Let's see if I can do it. So he's just doing this. He's not, whereas in the ballet, the German, the Samantha book, you didn't play, you had to play an entire year before you even got up to here. It's very thorough. But Francois would teach first, he'd take anybody who's never played the instrument before and says, okay, this is the bow, and just put it here and just let it go. Listen. And then he says, now here, if you put his finger right in the middle, and then you go all the way to the top, and then his son was little, he had a little cello. And he was doing his waiting for his dad to do something, to tell him. And he says, that's it. So, and then, it's just there. So all of a sudden, he began to write music with all these little different things happening. Now he's got 4 volumes. It's pretty amazing. If you ever have an opportunity to see him, or go Google Francois Rabbath, R-A-B-B-A-T-H. It's amazing. So I started playing with him, doing these workshops, and then I went to Paris and I studied with him a little bit. He says, I like the way you play, but I can help you play better. I said, okay, I like that. And it was like going to school again. Felt great. I started playing the German bow, and he plays French, and I wanted to really learn more about how to deal with the French bow, so I did that. This is a bass that I can take the neck off. The detachable neck, and this little screw here makes the whole neck go up and down like this. So I don't need adjustable bridge. That's why I can play a solid bridge now, because I can I can turn it, get it lower, and everything changes. They're making more instruments now that are like that. There's a guy in France does it. There's a guy in Italy does it, there's some people in New York City, but this one was done by a gentleman by the name of Mario Lamar. He's in Montreal, and he's got a patent on this, and none of the other instruments can do what he's done here. There's one other guy, I think in Colorado, that's got something else, and he's got a track that, but it's a little more metal in it, and the neck moves up and down. But
Can I ask you about the actual mechanism?
well, I can't. The only thing I can tell you is that the bolt is about that long, and it's down, and it has the ability to move like this. And right in here, it has a little nipple that holds, so when it actually moves up and down, the neck can't move forward off the instrument, so it just kind of rocks. But you can't see. He's got it because he's got a patent on it, but it works. I can take the bass apart in 15 minutes and put it together in 15 to 20 minutes, depending on whatever. And it's just like putting on new strings in a sense. I still have to wait a couple of hours before the string settles a little bit. But this way I can actually have my instrument with me. So I don't have any more excuses if I don't play that. You know. But that's how I...
Upton Bass is offering that feature.
Yes, but see, that's a byproduct. Once he started doing things, more people started to think, because the airlines have become, you know, they don't even want you to take a little bag, an extra bag, they're gonna charge you for it, just to go on the airplane. So
Well,
it's
you talk
kind
to
of...
my son about that. He's going to show you his instrument that he built. But anyway, we should probably wrap things up, and then the bass players can stay and ask Rufus some personal questions.
But
how about a hand for Rufus?